Articulation is not a natural talent that you're just born with. It's a skill, one that can be improved. The problem is you were just never really taught it in school or even college. It's annoying that there's good ideas in your head, but you just can't communicate them. And instead you come across as awkward or foolish. I was the same. I hated school presentations, I hated meeting new people, and I was always hesitant to press record in the early days of my channel because I knew my speech was clunky. I knew it was bad. However, over the years of speaking to you and practicing my own articulation, I picked up 5, dare I say, underrated techniques that help me clean up my speech and make me feel more confident as I talk. Some you can apply instantly and hopefully see a change then and there. Others will take more time and effort to rework how you process information. And the last one is just plain weird, but it's my favorite of all, and maybe even the strongest. The first tip is to embrace silence in conversations. And this is something you can do starting from today. And it will make every interaction you have from now smoother, less awkward, and more decisive. When it's your turn to reply in a conversation, there is a pressure. They've asked you a question, everyone's looking at you. You have to say something, come on, what are you doing? Respond. And because that silence is uncomfortable, you rush to fill it. Your mouth starts to move faster than your brain. And before you even had the chance to gather your thoughts, you've already started talking. Now you're working on the fly. And it can come out clumsy and almost like you don't know what you're talking about. But the thing is, you do. You just haven't given yourself time to compose your thoughts and then deliver it properly. I was like that, and instead I started to embrace the silence. I became comfortable with pauses. I allowed that time to just think, just to understand the question, to give a good response in return. Now, if you can do that, that's great. But what if that feeling of awkward silence is still there? I mean, it doesn't just suddenly go away. And that is true, and there are ways to work around that. Sometimes I straight up tell the person that I need a moment to think. And so now the silence is no longer awkward because they know why I'm doing it. It has a reason. And I feel like this shows them that you respect the conversation more because it proves that you're listening and that you want to give a really solid answer instead of just spitting something out. If that's not possible in the situation, then an easy hack is to repeat their last sentence or repeat the question they just asked you. And that will, A, show that you're listening, and B, it will give you time to confirm what is being said, and it will buy you some time to come up with a good answer. And I know it sounds a bit strange, but this really works in any conversation. It just shows that you're digesting what they're saying. And if you really hate the silence, you can think out loud. You can straight up admit to them that you don't know what to say or you don't have an answer for the question. And then you walk them through your thought process in real time out loud. And what happens is you end up reaching a conclusion with them rather than pretending you already have one and then hurrying to spit it out. So don't rush, embrace the silence and think about what you have to say before you say it. Also, a quick disclaimer, I have to mention that these tips are what worked for me. I don't claim that any of these are scientifically concrete or that they will definitely work for you. And I have to be upfront with you there. For some reason, when I say that, people kind of get mad sometimes, and I don't understand why. It's simply a case of, I tried this, it worked for me, I'm going to share it, maybe it works for you too. Maybe not. Maybe it's a total flop, but the point is for you to try, experiment, and maybe tinker it so it does work for you. And of course, I'd love to hear what you do to articulate yourself better and to be more confident in conversations. So that's that, on with the video. This second point is the most controversial, and it's that you should have a base level of knowledge before you can honestly start to articulate some of your beliefs. Nowadays, it feels like everyone has to have an opinion on everything, and it can get very toxic too. People will hate others simply because of what they believe. And it feels like everyone has a tribal loyalty to their party, their ideology, or their social group. One reason for that is the internet. A lot of people nowadays get their political and social beliefs purely from their feed, the media they consume. They form echo chambers, they can't hear out other people, and a lot of the time there's zero nuance or depth in these tweets or YouTube videos or whatever. And actually half of them come from memes. Many people's worldview is quite literally based on memes and viral posts, which is quite worrying to think about. And if you ask people what they believe about something, many will feel like they have to give you an opinion, even if they are in no position to do so, even if they don't have that base level of knowledge. And it can happen with anything, even more casual topics. For example, let's say you ask me what I think on veganism. Now, I could give you an opinion, but it's going to be half-baked. It's going to be based on some Instagram posts, some conversations I had, maybe a video essay I saw last month. It's going to be a crappy argument because I don't have that knowledge base to pull from. Sure, I might have some prejudices or bias or experience, but none of that is deep enough to make an informed argument, an opinion. It's also going to be very difficult to articulate my opinion, because to speak of something clearly, you have to first understand it clearly. I know that I'm ignorant in that discussion, so I try not to let pride get to me and attempt to articulate something that I'm not prepared for. In those situations where I know I'm lacking, I instead focus on asking questions, maybe focusing on the bits I do have some knowledge on, or just asking people what they think and reaching a conclusion together. Tip number 3 is to journal for clarity. And this is coming from someone who doesn't journal, so if you're the same, I understand, and don't worry because there are many different ways to apply this. Any writing is a fantastic way to practice your articulation. And you might think, well, you're not speaking though, so how's that even possible? Well, it's true, you're not speaking, but you are thinking. Whenever you write, especially by hand, there's intention behind each and every pen stroke. And that slow and manual process means you're forced to think about it. When you speak, you can ramble on forever, and you can talk nonsense. That's called waffling. But when you write, you have to slow down the flow of ideas, and that trains you to understand them more. When you write your thoughts, you find out all of the details and nuances, maybe even mistakes that you're making. And it gives you a self-awareness of your ideas. When the time comes to speak them out loud, you're more confident because you understand them better. You're actually seeing proof of this right now. I write a script for every video, not so I can read off the pages like some NPC. I don't do that. But it's so that I can articulate my thoughts before I share them with you. And that's much better than figuring it out on the fly and giving you some half-baked take on something. I mean, you deserve better than that, and I don't like it. By writing the script, I understand ideas more, I find mistakes, and I find better ways to say something. And that can only happen because of the writing. The best part is you can write pretty much whatever you want. If you like to journal, I mean, that's great. You can write some quick daily thoughts on whatever's on your mind. You can write mini essays on topics that interest you, like I do. You can write your best stories. You can write any weird dreams you had, or your goals, or your weekly highlights, or really anything. Writing is thinking, and you need to be able to think well before you can speak well. Speaking of journaling, I'm trying to get into it a bit more because it does look fun and useful, to be honest. Problem is, I always struggled and I don't really know how to begin or what to do. What's good is that Skillshare, who are the sponsor of this video, have plenty of classes to guide me through journaling and to give me that confidence I need to begin. I liked this class by Mimi Chow on how you can keep a sketchbook because I always thought it was cool to get better at drawing while you reflect through your writing. And that's only the start. Skillshare is the largest online learning community with thousands of classes in all things creative, including some of my personal favorites like filmmaking, writing, and productivity. It can be intimidating to get started with a hobby or craft, but here you have experts to guide you every step of the way, even as a complete beginner. I remember using a lot of the filmmaking classes in the early days of my channel, when I knew nothing about cameras or editing, and they gave me a clear roadmap on how to improve without me ever feeling lost or overwhelmed. And even nowadays, I'm always discovering new insights about reading, writing, and of course, journaling. And still, I've only scratched the surface. To explore Skillshare yourself, you can click the link in the description down below. And the first 500 people to do that will get a 1-month free trial to explore all of the classes with. So thank you to Skillshare, and I do hope you enjoy that. My 4th tip is to leave room for inner dialogue. You may have clicked on this video thinking that you're not an articulate person, but is that even true? Maybe it's just a symptom of the problem and not the actual problem itself. Well, let me explain that. In the modern world, we hate silence. We amuse ourselves to death with endless scrolling, binge watching, music, films, podcasts. It seems like there's always something going on in the background. This constant stream of content, noise, information, it fills your brain, and it suffocates the chance for any real thought to happen. It's no wonder then that you struggle to articulate yourself. The basis of good speech is good thought. But if you never allow that thinking to happen in the first place, then what can you do? It's why the idea of shower thoughts even exists as a concept. For many of us, a shower is the only time in the day where we get silence. Time to just digest all that information and make something of it. Of course you're busy, and I'm not suggesting we all get naked and run away in the forest for eternal solitude. That's for another day. But I would recommend that you find some time in your day or your week for just silence. Have a cup of coffee, look out the window, do the classic morning sit on the edge of the bed, get rid of the music on your walks, don't bring your headphones to the gym. Do something, anything to preserve your peace. Let your mind work. Let it do something with all of that content you consume. And only then, when you find a sense of peace and balance, will your speech have a stronger foundation to work from. I saved the weirdest tip for the end. Tip number 5 is to speak to the voices, which is another way to say talk to yourself. And I mean it. If you struggle to articulate yourself, practice articulating yourself with real world speech. I mean, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I'll offer some prompts on how you can do that, but first, why? Well, you have those moments in life where you think you know something well in your head, but as soon as you try and talk about it, I mean, it's bloody difficult. First, you have to think about what you're trying to say, but you also have to focus on the mechanics for speaking, the pronunciation, the intonation, the pacing, the flow, everything. It's quite difficult. Talking to yourself is a chance to practice that speech. You're free to make mistakes and to think on the spot with no fear of judgment because no one's there. You also get a chance to hear your ideas out loud and see if they make sense. Now, when you go on to repeat that in real world situations, you do so with more confidence because you've had that chance to practice and to iron out your edges in your own home. As for how you can do that, I personally like to pretend I'm giving a speech or talking to someone or even arguing with someone. Now, I don't add all the extra drama like I'm role-playing, but it's still really useful to, pace up and down, to throw the ideas out there, to brainstorm, and it really, trust me, it really helps you think clearly and have a better grasp on your ideas and understand what you're trying to say. And if you find it weird to talk to thin air like a schizophrenic, then you can try filming yourself. Because if there's a camera in front of you, you kind of have an audience to talk to. You're speaking to something rather than to yourself. And you're not going to publish it necessarily, but it's helpful to have that. And if you want, you can even go back and watch the footage to see what you can improve. Can you improve your speech patterns? Are you waffling? Are you saying nonsense? Can you fix your intonation? You can use it to learn and to teach yourself something. So next time you're feeling a bit freaky, start talking to yourself. Just make sure to also talk to real people, otherwise you'll go insane. And that was my 5 techniques of articulation. I'd love to hear what you think, and if you've got any that you want to share, because I know there's so many good ones out there, and it's only possible to discover them through the comment section. It's really helpful, so I'd love to hear what you have or what you've done in the past. And of course, if you like the videos on this channel, then you'll also like the newsletter. It's free to subscribe, the link's down below, not very spammy at all, just a few issues a month. And of course, there's similar content, similar ideas as here, but also room for different things. Like I'm in the progress of 2 book reviews right now. So there's just fun stuff like that. Bits of psychology, this and that. I'm sure you'll love it. So I'll see you there, and thank you for watching.